Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. As you could probably tell from the title, thumbnail, whatever, this video is going to be talking about big trucks versus little trucks. From my case specifically, I got an F-250 Tremor here and a Toyota Tacoma. This video is going to largely be talking, but if you want to see these trucks in action, walk around, dive deeper into the gear and all that stuff, just check out my channel, get subscribed below. I talk about these trucks and take them on adventures a bunch. This truck specifically, actually the last video I just did, we're giving this truck away. Diamondback and I have built this truck, raising a bunch of money for a charity that's trying to end human sex trafficking, that kind of stuff. That video got like no views. I don't know if YouTube was like, we're not gonna show this video to anybody, but no views. Go give that video a watch. I'll link it up here. This truck we're giving away. If you want more on that specifically, check out that video. But this video is gonna be about these two trucks here. Again, big versus little, F-250 versus Tacoma. But the general takeaway from this video is gonna be talking about big trucks, HD trucks, 250, 2500 and plus, versus little trucks, mid-sized trucks, Tacoma, Ranger, Colorado, that type of thing. So I wanna start this video out real quick by saying I always want to encourage you to not spend all of your money. Whatever you have right now, minivan, old Chevy S10, take that out on adventures, get a feel for it. That way, from your own experience, you'll be able to kind of over time realize what you want in a vehicle when that comes to gear or whatever. Here on this channel, I help you save a bunch of time by making a bunch of mistakes for you and telling you about the gear. So that's kind of what this video is going to be about. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a big truck or a little truck or whatever. Use what you have. But if you're in the market for one of these types of vehicles, hopefully this video will help. So this is just gonna be my face talking, so feel free just to listen to it on headphones or audio or whatever. I may splice in tiny bits of stuff, but for the most part, it's just gonna be this podcast style, so take that for what it is. Real quick, I wanna kind of set the stage. I've had the Tacoma for a long time. This is a 3rd gen Tacoma. I bought it in 2016, right when they came out. Owned it ever since, been doing all kinds of stuff with it. 250 relatively new, I got it at the very beginning of this year, have been building it up, but I have a bit of experience with it by now. Also, as people love to hear, I live in Colorado, so my terrain is Colorado mountain type terrain, is kind of the main stuff that I'm on. I'll also try to put little chapters down here and kind of group topics together so you can skip around to whatever you're interested in if you want to. And let me tell you, I'm looking forward to my new house build where I'm gonna build a big shop so I can park all the vehicles inside and have controlled lighting and just do cooler stuff. Okay, so for starters, big trucks, little trucks. There is also a segment kind of in between, and there's a segment even smaller and there's a segment even bigger. But for the most part, 250, 2500, so that includes 3500, 4500, 5500, F250, 350, 450, all that kind of stuff. Tacomas, Rangers, Colorados. But a very common segment in between, kind of smack dead in between, is F-150, which is the most popular vehicle in America, Ram 1500, Chevy 1500, those kinds of things. So they're kind of like in between these. I'm not gonna really talk about those, but you can think that they're basically in between. You're smaller than the 250, bigger than, we'll just take Ford for an example, bigger than the Ranger. Though honestly, in a lot of regards, those 150, 1500 trucks are actually closer to these smaller trucks in terms of payload, bed size, drivetrain components. They're honestly probably closer to this end of the spectrum than they are to the HD trucks. Most of the HD trucks, aside from the Chevys, have a solid front axle, and they're just bigger in general, much bigger beds. You take a Tacoma, we'll just take the short bed Tacoma, has a 5-foot bed. An F-150 has a 5.5-foot bed, so you're gaining 6 inches there. But an F-250, a short bed F-250, is 6 3/4 foot beds, so you get a lot more space. Having said that, the cab, little known fact, the cab of an F-250 is almost identical to the cab of an F-150. They're almost exactly the same. There's like a few minor changes, but they're like the same size. And a 250, 350, 450, 550, they all have the same cabs and beds as well. So, quick preface, to get that out of the way, I know there's gonna be, what about a Raptor? What about a TRX? What about an F-150? Yeah, it's kind of, you can just think of it as kind of in between. And then a big one that isn't really specific to a small truck or a big truck is aftermarket support. Again, sorry, now the sun is out so bright. Aftermarket support, that's not really a little truck versus a big truck thing. For example, a little truck, a Tacoma, has much more aftermarket support than another little truck, a Ranger. Having said that, an F-150 or an F-250, they're very common trucks. They're very popular trucks. So they have pretty good aftermarket support for them, but it may not necessarily be as niche overlandy as like a Tacoma aftermarket support. So aftermarket support, again, not really specifically big truck versus little truck. Some specific models will just inherently have more of a following, like a Tacoma, versus others like Chevy 2500 probably won't have a whole lot of aftermarket support. So aftermarket support, get that out of the way. And then now we'll get into the biggest difference right here, getting very scientific: size. An F-250 is gonna be much bigger than a Tacoma. And that is very, very obvious, but I'm gonna talk about why that might affect your choice between buying one versus the other. So big obvious size for a big truck is you have more room. If you have a big family, if you have a bunch of dogs, if you have tons of gear, if you wanna throw a huge tent or a camper shell or whatever, you have more room for all of that. You have more physical room, but you also have more payload. Payload is basically how much weight you can add onto the truck. So when you add humans and you add water and you add tents and you add refrigerators and coolers, all that stuff adds up in weight. So you need the room for it, but you also need the ability to handle that weight. A big truck will handle weight better inherently. They're gonna have more payload capacity. They're gonna be able to handle more in the bed, more in the cab. So this Tremor, for example, has around a 3,000 pound capacity payload. The Tacoma has less than 1,500. Ironically, you get an F-150 Raptor or a TRX or even a Ram Power Wagon, which is an HD truck. They'll have about 1,500 pounds of payload capacity as well. But you get into the true HD trucks, which is one of the reasons I got a Tremor versus a Power Wagon. I wanted just gobs and gobs of payload capacity. So you have the ability to handle all of that weight. What that means practically is, yeah, obviously it can handle the weight, but the brakes are bigger, the drivetrain is bigger, the suspension components are bigger. They're beefed up so the manufacturer says, hey, we're confident that you can drive this thing on a highway and whatever with 3,000 pounds in there, and it can stop, it can brake, it can bounce around and everything, and it'll be able to handle that. Whereas the Tacoma manufacturer says, well, we recommend less than half of that. And if you go over that, not saying your truck will inherently brake, but it isn't really built to handle those kinds of loads. So if you have more people, you have more gear, you have more all that stuff, this will handle it both in terms of room, but also in terms of weight. And with more weight, with more gear, that comes some other practical applications. Like for example, these trucks are built very similarly. On this one, I have an iCamper SkyCamp full size. That's basically over the bed of the truck, iCamper SkyCamp full size. That's basically, you can sleep four in there pretty comfortably. It's a king size bed in there, so four camping four. Whereas in this truck, I have the iCamper SkyCamp Mini taking up the same rough space on the bed of the truck, and that basically sleeps two people. So not only can it carry more, but if you have bigger things, you can carry more in the same kind of space, if that makes sense. And in addition to that, you can run bigger tires easier. Bigger tires will be a component that we talk about later with engine and drivetrain and all that kind of stuff. But this truck right here is sitting on 39-inch tires. It could be sitting on 40-inch tires, and it doesn't even have a lift, no lift. This is the Tremor package, so it kind of has like a leveling kit. But you can fit 40-inch tires on this. You gotta do some fender trimming again, make a bunch of videos on this truck already, so check out my channel if you're interested. But this truck has 40-inch tires, no lift. No problem. No problem. This truck has 35-inch tires, which is pretty big for a Tacoma, and it has a lift. And I've cut all kinds of crap to make it fit, and it's still not awesome. But big truck, you can have just bigger things all around. But with size comes weight. This truck is much heavier than this truck is. Now, weight isn't always a bad thing. If I got into a car accident, I would want a bigger truck. If it's the end of the world and this is a bug out rig and I need to push vehicles out of the way, I would like a bigger, stronger, heavier truck. But off-roading, overlanding, stuff like that, oftentimes you want a lighter vehicle. So take that into consideration. Heavier isn't necessarily worse, but lighter typically is better. So now we talked about some pros of a bigger truck. Let's talk about some pros of a smaller truck. So as it pertains to me, overlanding, again, off-roading, camping, whatever, especially in Colorado, parts of the Northeast and stuff, a smaller truck will get you more places. You have a shorter wheelbase, so it's less wide, it's not as tall, you'll be able to fit through tighter forests in between some boulders and stuff like that. A bigger truck won't always do worse. Again, this is sitting on 40-inch tires. It's a big beast of a truck. It can go a lot of places, but where you have smaller confines, a smaller truck is going to be able to get you places where the bigger truck won't be able to. In addition, Colorado, there's a lot of crazy tight switchback mining pass trails. I'm much more comfortable taking the Tacoma on those trails than an F-250, especially with the weight difference. These old roads, these old mining roads weren't built for these kinds of trucks, or even these kind of trucks, but the smaller trucks will inherently do better on certain types of terrain. And not only better, but you're also gonna just not damage your truck as much. You're not gonna get as many pinstriping, you're not gonna, there's a lot of times there's like low branches where I'm just like hitting right here, whereas the Tacoma will go right under it. So there's a lot of things to consider on trails, big versus little. And obviously a smaller truck's gonna maneuver better. I hear a lot of people out there talking about big trucks, oh, they can do pretty much whatever. Trust me, I have a big truck, I have a little truck, driving it around town, turning around in my driveway, going out on trails. You're gonna notice this truck feels twice as big in some circumstances. In some cases, sometimes it feels about the same, but like turning around in my driveway, I gotta do like a 4-point turn to get out. My Tacoma can basically come down in here and do a U-turn. So size is definitely a big issue for maneuverability out on the trail, but also just like around town. You're gonna be able to park easier with a little truck, you're gonna be able to turn around easier in a little truck, you're gonna be able to parallel park easier in a little truck, you're gonna be able to fit in a little parking garages easier in a little truck. Fortunately, I live in the mountains like you guys love to hear again, so a lot of the parking spaces are bigger. So I personally have no issues at all fitting the big truck into my life. But if you lived in a little apartment complex, or you live downtown, or you live somewhere where just space is more of an issue, a smaller truck is definitely going to work much better for your life. Okay, so that's most of what I wanted to talk about, I think, for size. But then we have power. You have a bigger truck, it's going to have more power. Little trucks are going to have less power. Granted, some, again, Tacoma's probably on the weaker side. The Ranger has a little more power. If you get a diesel Colorado, it has a little more power. But in general, the smaller trucks are going to be much less powerful than the bigger trucks. So with great power comes great responsibility, and you have the responsibility to tow a crap ton. So these trucks can tow 15, 20,000 more pounds depending on hitch or gooseneck or whatever. But this truck right here, a Tremor, a truck that's kind of built for the off-road, has a rear locker, front limited slip, off-road modes. This can tow 15,000 pounds in the standard trailer hitch, which is just the max rating of the regular hitch. Can tow even more on a gooseneck. So you can tow a ton of weight. This Tacoma, it touts a decent towing capacity. It's like 6,600 pounds. I think some of these little trucks get up into the 7,000 pound range, woo, but that's still less than half as much as pretty much most of your HD trucks are going to be able to tow. This is a gas engine. This is a 7.3 liter gas engine. If you have a diesel, you're going to have even more power than that. So you have gobs of power. So if you need to tow something big, obviously you're going to have to go with an HD truck. But along with the more power and the more towing capacity, also able to churn these big tires. So 40-inch tires, no gearing, no problem. Granted, the Ford is awesome with the 10-speed auto transmission, but I put these 40-inch tires on 39-inch technically, and it drives better than a stock Tacoma. This thing drives incredible with no gears, factory everything, 39-inch tires, no problem. The Tacoma, on the other hand, he's got some gearing issues with the 3rd gen, even stock. But I put 529, so I have 529s in my Tacoma, and I have 35s, or even if I had 33s, I would have the same issues where I just don't have much power. You get robbed of a lot of power, you gotta do a lot of stuff to make the 35-inch tires fit, and then even then, there's potential for more breakage because the truck wasn't designed to have all that power, right? So it was designed to turn smaller tires, and all of the components, axles, drivetrain, all that stuff wasn't really designed for all of that torque. So when you add bigger tires, you have more chance to break things. Granted, I have more chance to break things on the big truck when I put on bigger tires as well, but it's less because this truck was already designed to freaking just do big work, whereas this truck wasn't really designed for that. And it also means a massive truck won't be as affected by adding bumpers and gear and people and, 100 gallons of water and a bigger fuel tank and roof racks and everything, because the bigger truck is already big and powerful and it's already accounting for moving all of that weight. So when you add a little bit more weight to that, say I'm gonna add an extra 1,000 pounds, this truck won't notice it. Adding 1,000 pounds to a smaller truck, it's gonna notice it. It's gonna notice it in the steering, it's gonna notice it in the acceleration, it's gonna notice it in the braking. So if you're adding more weight, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but also this truck is just not gonna really notice it, which kind of brings us into a common thing that I hear, oh, my big truck gets better gas mileage than the little truck. It's kind of true, but most of the time those people are comparing apples to oranges because they're talking about the fuel economy of their diesel big truck versus the fuel economy of a gasoline little truck. So it's not really a good comparison. This is a gasoline big truck, this is a gasoline little truck. So that's a more appropriate comparison, and this truck definitely gets worse gas mileage. Bone stock. This truck gets like 11 miles per gallon. How you see it now, actually, surprisingly, gets about 11 miles per gallon as well. So changing this truck from bone stock to what it is now pretty much has no effect on the fuel economy. Honestly, pretty much no effect on the fuel economy. But that fuel economy sucks. It sucks stock and it sucks now. The fuel economy on the Tacoma also sucks. Granted, these are numbers for me, mountain living again. Sorry I keep saying this, but I live at almost 9,000 feet of elevation, driving up and down mountains. So I get the worst of the worst fuel economy. So when I say 11 miles per gallon, that's for me. If you're down in the city, in the flats, you'll probably get better than that. But in the mountains for me, the bone stock Tacoma was getting about 18, 19 miles per gallon. I added all this stuff, and the fuel economy isn't hit that much, really, all things considered. But I'm getting about 15 miles per gallon combined now in the Tacoma. But still, that's 15 versus 11. So you're not really getting better fuel economy if you're comparing gas to gas, if you're comparing apples to apples. Having said that, a lot of people get diesel engines in these big trucks for good cause. You get more power, it's less effect. You turn these tires even easier, less affected by elevation gain, can tow even better, torque for days. A diesel engine will get, probably this same setup on a diesel would be getting 18 miles per gallon. So in that case, diesel to gas, I'd be getting better fuel economy in the diesel. But again, not really a great comparison. Not surprisingly that a big gas engine, this is a 7.3 liter gas engine. This is a 3.5 liter. So this engine literally over twice as big and like twice as powerful. So fuel economy, not really better, but at the same time, like I just mentioned, not as affected by all of these modifications. This is a big truck, 40-inch tires. The fuel economy didn't change. So yeah, power and fuel economy, again, especially a stock Tacoma, not bad. And you can do a lot of stuff on a stock Tacoma, so if you're comparing stock to stock, fuel economy still probably errs on the side of a smaller truck because science, it's smaller, requires less energy to move. Okay, so that's the power segment. There's really no argument. There's no argument. This is going to have more power in every way, shape, or form in any engine. But again, if you keep the small truck relatively stock like that Ranger with the EcoBoost, it feels pretty peppy, honestly, and it's not a bad truck. It will feel very powerful. But again, once you start adding all that stuff, you're going to rob power a lot faster than you are with the big truck. Cool. All right, then let's talk about capability. We touched about this a little bit earlier on, like a smaller truck will do better on tight trails and stuff like that. So that's a big thing when it comes to capability. Depending on the terrain you're going, this truck may just not be able to go places that this truck is able to go. But that doesn't mean it is inherently less capable. These trucks, I would say they're comparably built right now. This comes stock. A Tremor comes stock with 35-inch tires. This comes stock with like 30-inch tires. Bigger tires add to capability. Right now, this is sitting on about 40s. This is sitting on 35s. A bigger truck with big tires, decent ground clearance, wheelbase, longer wheelbase isn't always a bad thing, especially when it comes to steep climbs. Not necessarily a bigger truck would be less capable in all circumstances. So capability kind of a wash. I would say overall, a smaller truck is just going to be more capable for the most part. But again, when it comes to like, again, I'm a little bit of a prepper, I'm a little bit of a survivalist, so I talk sometimes, occasionally on like bug out vehicles and that kind of end of the world stuff. This, I would say, I would choose this truck in the end of the world for capability because it's just bigger. The bigger tires roll over stuff easier, the more power pushes through stuff easier. So in some regards, this is a more capable truck. So capability, it comes up from time to time. I got a lot of questions like, oh, is it as capable? In some regards, it's more capable. In some regards, less capable. And then one factor that goes overlooked sometime is amenities, like how nicely equipped is the truck. And big trucks can basically be optioned up to just luxury cars. Like this is a mid-grade F-250, heated steering wheel, heated, cooled seats, like everything, panoramic sunroof, like a lot of heated rear seats, like a lot of really incredible amenities. You can get auto rear tailgate, you can get massaging seats in the Platinum version of this truck. So the bigger trucks, these big, massive American trucks, are just chock full of amenities. Where the little trucks don't have as much. You can't even max optioned, you're not going to get the amenities that you are going to get out of a big truck. Does that matter to you? I have no idea if it matters to you. All I know is a heated steering wheel, which might be, it wasn't available on mine. Heated steering wheels may be available now. Like my Ashley's RAV4, like pretty low mid-spec, has a heated steering wheel. I don't know if the Tacoma has it, but overall, amenities you're gonna find more here. But I'll tell you, living in Colorado, heated steering wheel, oof, incredible. I've had heated seats have been around for a long time. They're awesome, but heated steering wheel, whew. And now what this has also, this truck that you can win has cooled seats, which I've never had in a vehicle before. And those are incredible if you're in a hot climate as well. I don't think any Tacoma comes with cooled seats. But yeah, amenities, if that matters to you, huge win, huge cost, which will take us to our next point of cost. This is going to cost more. No way around it. The big trucks, a lot of times, the big American trucks have a lot of incentives. So you'll be able to knock some of that price down, but no matter what, it's going to cost more. For an even equally equipped, it's a bigger truck. It's more material. No duh, it costs more, as it should. But it does cost more, and in a lot of cases, considerably more. This truck, off the lot, bone stock. It was a Tremor package, but not like a Platinum, nothing like that. Just Lariat, decent option truck. This was a $70,000 truck, bone stock. $70,000 bone stock. This cruises in a little bit under $40,000. It was a 2016, but at the time it was optioned up about as high as it could go. This is the TRD off-road, has the locker, has everything, moonroof. About as high as I could option this truck out realistically that I wanted. You could go a little bit higher with the Pro, but we'll just take the TRD off-road as the example, and we'll just round this to $40,000. So $70,000, $40,000. If you wanted the same truck with a diesel, that'd be about $80,000, but we'll stick gas to gas right now. So $70,000, $40,000. That's a pretty massive cost difference. But you say, oh, yeah, financing and all that stuff. Yeah, it's true. But pure cost, $30,000 difference. You can do a lot of aftermarket for $30,000. So then this will bring us to kind of budget, basically. Like, I don't know what your budget is. I don't know how much you want to spend. I don't know how much debt you want to go into. Don't go into debt. Stick within your means. But if you say, hey, just completely theoretical because these numbers are easy, I have an $80,000 budget total for this Overland build. For this, you could get this truck in a diesel bone stock and that's it. Not even to say that's a bad option. It can do a lot in a bone stock truck, but you can't really add much to it. But say you got the gas, you got $10,000, wheels, tires, and you're pretty much done, right? This truck, you have $30,000. No, if it was $40,000, you have $40,000 of mods you can add to it. So assuming an $80,000 budget, again, I just pulled that out of the sky. $40,000 of mods versus basically nothing you can do to this truck. So cost is a big difference. So if you have a budget like myself and 99.9% of people have, this is going to be better on your budget. No arguing about that. Okay, I think I covered most of what I wanted to cover. I should start like scripting my videos. I don't script videos like most YouTubers. I hear, like I watch a lot of YouTube myself. They're like, oh, this is my workflow and I write my scripts and this and that. I don't write scripts. So I just kind of off the cuff of my head. In this video, I did think of like the 4 points or whatever, like cost and size and power and amenities or whatever it was. But hopefully I covered everything. I'm going to kind of summarize it, and kind of the takeaway for this is obviously the last thing we talked about, budget. That's a big thing. So ignoring budget, we'll just take that off the table. Why would you want a big truck? Well, if you have a big family, if you have a lot of gear, if you want to haul stuff, if you need an HD truck, a lot of people, these are commonly work trucks. Historically, they're coming much more popular in the overland space because of all the pros that I've laid out in this video. But a lot of people have these trucks for work because they tow or for fun. They have a big boat or they have a fifth wheel or whatever. If you need to do big truck things require a big truck. But if you also just want to throw on 40-inch tires and not worry about breaking things very easily, if you just want a massive tent on the back, you want to throw the biggest Dometic fridge in there or whatever, then a big truck is probably for you. Now on the other end of the spectrum, say you don't have a big family, or if you do, they're used to kind of cramming into tight spaces or whatever, you don't have a lot of gear, or you don't really need to tow anything. Obviously it can tow, it just can't tow big things and it's not really built to tow. If you don't do a bunch of towing, or maybe you live in the city or an apartment or you're parallel parking a lot downtown or whatever, a small truck has a lot of advantages. Or obviously, again, like we talked about, if you really want to go to those places where you really need a smaller vehicle on those tighter trails, this is going to be the truck for you. And again, I keep coming back to it, budget. If you want to have a tricked out, basically you could have this Tacoma or you could have a bone stock F-250. So it kind of budget, it plays a big role as well. But that's kind of obvious. Like obviously a big truck's going to cost more than a little truck. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it. Again, if you enjoyed this video, I appreciate a thumbs up and comments down below. Feel free to ask questions. I'll try and get to them. And yeah, this video is kind of boring to watch. It is what it is. But if you want to see these trucks, either of them, both of them, in action, I have a series on my channel. It's called Weekender Lander. It's a play on words, Overlander, but just on the weekends, Weekender Lander. As well as like build walkarounds, updates, that kind of stuff. Again, giving this truck away too, so feel free to follow that. Yeah. All right. Until next time, guys. Take care.